I think CTV has a fair amount of challenges, but clearly lots of opportunities. I don't know that we're necessarily recreating any of the crimes of the past. I actually think it's an entirely new beast sort of onto its own, right? The fragmentation that's being created within CTV starts with the consumer, right? Because they want to consume content on their terms the way they want. So that means maybe it's Roku, maybe it's on their Samsung TV, maybe it's on an LG TV, maybe it's through a FAST channel, right? So that all puts pressure on the content creators to make sure that we're distributing our content and our programming and our apps across all of those, right? So the fragmentation starts with the consumer, and then the media companies are chasing that consumer with their distribution endpoints. Now, the problem that we have here, though, is all of those endpoints, even in CTV, which we talk about as one thing, it's not one thing. It's like 40 different things. There's different technology, there's different data, different permissioning and things you can do. So that fragmentation now falls back on the ad sales components and obviously on the marketing ecosystem, right? To try and figure out how to re-aggregate that so that you can actually scale across, right? So again, fragmentation starting with the consumer carries through to the way that we actually distribute all of our content. And then because of that sort of bifurcated technology and data components, it's really hard to put Humpty Dumpty back together again. We talk a lot about data in terms of audience and targeting and optimization and attribution. We don't talk a lot about the role that data can play in context and even in content, right? So if you think about what actually makes an ad work, there's a handful of things or levers or dials that a marketer has to pull, right? It's the message, right? So your actual creative, what you're saying to that consumer, how many times you say it, frequency is really important. Who you talk to, really important. The time you talk to them, right? If you're opening a movie on Friday night, you probably want to talk to them Thursday night. That would be a great time, right? The screen size matters. And I would argue, maybe most importantly, content and context matter as well, right? Where you're putting that ad. And that's an area where I don't think we spend enough time talking about how data can help with that, right? So if you think about using data to build sort of big metadata sets about the content and programming itself, but then also the advertising, and then finding great opportunities to combine those, probably see a lot higher engagement and resonance with your consumer, right? And I think the ultimate piece here is when you can target the right person at the right time, in the right context, you likely see the highest ROI and ROAS. But again, we haven't spent enough time, I think, digging into this, one, measuring it to figure out the right way to do it, but then also solutioning and building out capabilities that allow you to modulate at both audience and context together, because I think they have to go hand in hand. Look, everything needs to be simplified in this business right now. And again, I sort of come back to, we're very hard on ourselves for how challenging and all these problems. The reality is, this stuff is hard, right? And our consumers are very fickle, right? Again, the way they want to consume content, we've created a ton of innovation in how we distribute content. And that creates new opportunities and new capabilities. But that also, again, back to that fragmentation part, makes it really, really hard to scale. So we're trying lots of new things, which I think is a good thing. But again, all those little things that we're trying sort of go against the idea of scale. Plumbing is definitely part of it, but there's a few different angles to that, right? I always think about it first and foremost in like how a bill becomes a law, right? So how a piece of video gets to a piece of glass, right? And there's a set of technology that lets you do that. And again, there's fragmentation there. The way that we do that with a Roku versus an Apple, TV OS versus iOS versus Android versus an MVPD set-top box for maybe it's a FAST channel, maybe it's VOD, all the way like live, learn here, addressable. That technology is very, very complicated, and it's very different across all of those points. And then you have the data component as well, right? So you have different data that exists across each of those. It has to get simplified, right? At the end of the day, that's the only way that I think we bring sort of the scale to CTV and OTT that marketers really crave. We bag on, linear TV a lot, but linear TV is big and it's scaled and it's a very efficient marketplace. And it's that way because we've actually sacrificed a lot of the more complex things. It's transacted largely age-sex demographics, direct sold in an upfront and a scattered marketplace. And you can move billions of dollars in a minute very seamlessly, right? Where people get, I think, tripped up with this programmatic piece is we don't need programmatic to solve for that simple problem. We need that as a sales channel to solve for all the complexity in terms of the technology and the data and all those pieces. So I think we have to get there. I don't know exactly how and when, but I do think we're making strides certainly in that direction.